Virtua Fighter 2. I remember playing it at the arcades growing up and just being blown away by the large 3D fighters, fluid gameplay, and altogether different style of fighting game completely. Owning the Sega Saturn version growing up was a real treat for me because it was possibly the first game I owned that brought home that arcade experience for me. And because of that, I sank a hell of a lot of time into this game by myself and with friends. Virtua Fighter 2 at the time was practically unparalleled by any other fighting game in terms of complexity, mobility, and maneuverability. And even years later, when other 3D fighters came out, Virtua Fighter 2 was still head and shoulders above them. The only other 3D fighter I could think that came close was maybe Last Bronx, but I never really sank a ton of time into that game growing up, even though I did own it. I just remember the combo system in that game being pretty hard. But there was always just a level of polish to Virtua Fighter 2 that I never saw in any other game at the time. I think for me it was the point of comparison for all 3D fighters to come out from that point on. Comparison is going to be the theme of this video, because I'm in fact not here to sing the praises of Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Saturn. No, I'm making this video in order to talk about how it compares to its ports. The first one? Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis. Now if you're like me and have never touched or seen this game, you're probably wondering, how the heck are they going to make a 3D fighter on the Genesis work, much less Virtua Fighter 2? Well, first of all, it looks pretty damn good. The character select screen is almost identical, but slightly degraded from the Saturn version, though it is missing two characters, Shun and Lion. But how does it play, you say? Really, really well. The characters all look really good. In their design and in their animations, they move and feel as if they're only a slightly watered down version of their arcade counterparts. Characters don't have their complete moveset, of course. This is a smaller game, remember? But they do have a pretty impressive moveset, making sure to keep hold of their iconic moves that are instantly recognizable. Now the sound is pretty good too. From sound effects, voices, and music, they're all on point and provide for an immersive experience. This game feels really good from top to bottom, as if you were playing Virtua Fighter 2, just a slightly less evolved version of it. Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis is a really well put together game. And even if you didn't compare it to the original, it would stand on its own just fine. So there's one more comparison to make, and one more rung down on the devolution ladder we can step to. And that's Virtua Fighter Animation for the Game Gear. Kind of a weird name in the West because in Japan it was labeled under Virtua Fighter Mini, and part of a rebranding effort to make the Game Gear more kid-friendly, which makes sense when you see this game. But wow, look at these illustrations. Pretty good, I'd say. Definitely more than what I'd expect on the Game Gear. They took like a Saturday morning cartoon direction with it, and I really dig it. Playing this for the first time, I found myself actually excited to see what was going to come next. This is how you know you're playing a game on the Game Gear. Look at this options screen, how small that is. That's pretty funny. There are two modes you can play, Story and Versus Com, or your typical arcade mode. Story mode isn't something I was expecting from this game, but it looks great, provides a bit of backstory for the characters, and is a breath of fresh air that I really enjoy. As far as how it plays out, you start out as Akira, and through the storyline and fights unlock more characters to play with. Now personally, this mode was hard as hell for me to go through, so after getting my butt handed to me, I headed over to arcade mode. And wow, look at that! It looks pretty good! Just like the Genesis version, no Shun or Lion. Now this whole normal large real-time thing refers to your camera position, far out, zoomed in, or sort of both like in Samurai Shodown where it goes in and out. But that mode is a bit janky, so I just go for the large mode. Alright, so moment of truth, it looks cute, but it is a Game Gear game, so how does it play? Surprisingly well! Once again, like in the Genesis version, characters have a few of their iconic moves that they're known for, even though I can only imagine how small the moveset truly is. You can still use throws and other things that require multiple buttons to be hit at once, though since it is Game Gear, it's admittedly a little hard to pull off. But the game feels really good. I recognize these animations, combos, and special moves, and the character design is done well enough so that I totally recognize what iconic character I'm looking at. And the gameplay itself is surprisingly fluid. It just makes me feel like there was a lot of care put into this game, even though it was only on a handheld system. It's something that apparently resonates with me because I really enjoyed playing this game, and actually besides what I captured, played it multiple times. It's not just a button masher like you might expect. You can actually play this game like a fully fledged fighting game. and have a great time doing it. Personally, I found the games difficult to be a little tough, but really fair too. When you sink in a little time and feel out the flow of the game and eventually defeat Durl, it's a really cathartic feeling. End screens matter, and even though this one has a spelling error, it feels good to see it, and I'll let it slide. Ports of fighting games to downgraded systems, especially handheld ones, usually don't fare very well from my experiences. Compared to ports of other fighting games, I'd say these are better than most. And like I said, even on their own, they're both awesome games. Two that I now wish I had owned growing up. So as always, thanks for watching. Oh, what's that? Jackie from Virtua Fighter Animation, you had something you wanted to say before we left? What?
どうした？怖くなったか？